Hello and welcome to the Savage Movie Night Podcast. Today we are continuing to talk all about the 1994 Spike Lee classic Crooklyn. I'm your slowly realizing robbing small children to fuel my glue sniffing habit might be wrong host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is my refusing to give her brother back his precious Knicks tickets co-host, Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Adam. How you doing?
Good. Always great to have you here. And of course, the show wouldn't be complete without our not the first time he's seen a dog squished by a folding bed co-host, Rob. Hi, Rob.
Yeah, man, it happens. How you doing, Adam?
Good.
Kristen, what's happening?
Hey, man.
So it is summer blockbuster season. Do you guys have any big movies you are looking forward to coming out this summer in 2025?
Well, there's a lot of sequels, requels, remakes, as always, for every session. And normally that wouldn't make me excited, but I am excited for the new Final Destination movie, just because it's such a fascinating concept. I'll watch any new Final Destination movie just to see what concept they come up with this time. Also very excited for Clown in a Cornfield, which comes out this weekend, actually. And so that is an adaptation of a book series that I really like by Adam Caesar. And so I'm excited to see it adapted to the big screen. I'm not expecting it to be great, but I'm hoping I at least have fun.
Awesome. Well, and, Final Destination, the final on-screen appearance of Tony Todd since his passing. RIP to a real one. Yeah, no, I understand. Now, are you because the new I Know What You Did Last Summer is also coming out?
Oh yeah, I do want to check that out. Oh, and Freakier Friday is also coming out. So there's like some of the remakes I will check them out, even if I'm not thrilled. I would like more original ideas, but you got to take what you get.
Yeah, no, true. And how about Megan 2.0?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that one, I'm interested to see how they can make it work, because I feel like the first movie is so good by itself. It doesn't need a sequel, but whatever. We'll see. James Wan, he's been doing all kinds of crazy stuff lately. He's got such a weird filmography.
No, he does. But I know you mentioned Weapons, which is coming out in August.
Yes. Zach Kreger, he directed or created Barbarian, which is like one of my favorite horror movies of the last couple years. And so anything he makes, I will be sat for that. So we'll see what happens with that.
And speaking of originals, have you heard about him?
No, I don't think so.
So that's it's produced by Jordan Peele. It's kind of like a horror-ish film about a football player, and what lengths he will go to ensure success. It seems very interesting. I check out the trailer for that. That's not out until September, but some people consider like the end of September, the end of summer blockbuster season. So,
okay, yeah.
Rob, how about you?
I think F1 is coming out this summer, right?
Yeah, no, F1 is June 27th as of right now. That could be interesting. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. I think from a couple of different things, from the cinematography, like just the way it's being shot, and the things that I'm seeing already, and then I do like F1, Formula One racing. NASCAR, but just overall racing. So I appreciate it a little differently. And so I'm just kind of looking for it from that as a kind of just a fan of the sport. So that one. And then also, it's not so much that I'm looking forward to the movie, but more the experience of just going with my family, because they're the ones that like turned me on to Karate Kid.
Oh, so yeah.
That movie is coming out too, which if you know anything about the rebooted series, which they did actually just amazing job at. So I'm just looking forward for like as a family, just going to check that out.
Now, they've got the Naked Gun remake, sequel series. That's coming out, and like there's part of me that is morbidly fascinated. I might check that out. I did like the O.J. Simpson gag in the trailer.
Right. Yeah.
I'm also interested in Superman, just because I love James Gunn. And so while I'm not the biggest Superman fan, I do think he makes good movies regardless, and so I want to check that out. The Toxic Avenger uh, with Peter Dinklage and Elijah Wood is finally, after years in limbo, coming out in August. So I'm looking forward to that. And there are a few what's it called, the Phoenician Scheme. The latest from Wes Anderson with Benicio del Toro looks interesting. There's Nobody 2. The Nobody was with Bob Odenkirk was good. I don't know if I'll check that one out in theaters, but I'll keep my eye on it. And then I can't remember the name of it, but there's a DiCaprio movie with from Paul Thomas Anderson that looks good. Del Toro is also in that. So a couple things. Not like Fantastic Four. I'll probably wait until streaming. Mission Impossible. I'm starting to go make my way through the series. I'd missed a lot of those over the years, and but a lot of people really seem to love them. So I'm trying to see if maybe that's something I might catch in theaters, just because it's zeitgeist kind of thing.
Right, right. And you mentioned Benicio del Toro. I got to tell you, I just saw him again. We all know he's a great actor, and I don't need to, convince you of that. You already know, but I saw him in the series that I think is directed by Ben Stiller called Escape at Dannemora on Netflix. It's a true story of these two inmates that escaped from a prison in New York, and I think it was in the 90s. Wait, I'm kind of forgetting the time period now, but man, his acting again, it was just phenomenal. So I recommend it's gotta be a happy series. I mean, when you ever talk about one day like the main character is kind of a very sad life, but his performance was again just over the top.
No, I'll have to check that out because I have loved Benicio since like Usual Suspect days. So,
right? Yeah.
And he's in one of his very early roles is in Big Top Pee Wee, the which is not a good.
Really?
Yeah. He's like the Wolf Boy or something, I think.
Hilarious.
But but that also transitions into not a summer blockbuster or anything, but something that just came out on Max. Is a 2-part documentary on Paul Rubens that I'm eager to check out.
Oh, that should be good. Nice.
Yeah. So, anyway, we're talking about summer blockbuster season because the Crooklyn came out in the heart of summer blockbuster season. So, that kind of transitions us back into today's episode. And on today's episode, we are going to learn what happens when a man loves a woman, if Spike Lee can ever make it in Hollywood, and most importantly, what the hell was Second Noah? Because today we're continuing to talk all about the 1994 Spike Lee classic Crooklyn. But first, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Jazzology with Willard Jenkins. Jazzology is a fun and challenging jazz trivia show where 2 contestants go head to head for a chance to win $100 and prove their jazz knowledge. Watch along and see if you know the answers. Want to prove you are a true jazzologist by appearing as a contestant on the show? Use the link in the description of any episode to sign up. New episodes air every other Saturday on the Savage Content YouTube channel, youtube.com/savagecontent. And all past episodes are available under the Live tab. Thanks to Jazzology for sponsoring today's episode. And now, back to the show. This is part 2 of our episode on Spike Lee's 1994 movie Crooklyn. If you haven't listened to part 1, pause this and go check it out. But in case you don't do that, or you just need a refresher, here is a quick recap. We talked about Spike Lee's early life growing up in Brooklyn as the oldest of 5 children to a musician father and art teacher mother, his start in film at NYU, and his career from She's Gotta Have It up to today's film Crooklyn. We talked about how Crooklyn started with a script from his sister Jui, exploring her childhood, and then Spike and their younger brother Sinke reworked it along with her and other production notes. Finally, we dove into the early parts of the plot as we got introduced to the Carmichaels, a family of 5 kids, 4 boys and 1 girl, with a musician father, played by the excellent Delroy Lindo, and teacher mother, played by the incomparable Alfie Woodard. We focus in on Troy, Zelda Harris, the only girl and approximately in the middle of the siblings as she navigates growing up in 1973 Brooklyn and its denizens. Her mother needs to teach summer school to help the family make ends meet and doesn't want Troy running the streets like her brothers and is hinting at sending Troy to visit family in the South. Meanwhile, the boys like to harass neighbor Tony Eyes, David Patrick Kelly, whose dogs smell up the neighborhood. When Tony confronts the boys and their mother about the kids throwing trash into his space, it escalates, and Vic, Isaiah Washington, who rents the upstairs room from the Carmichaels and is a Vietnam vet, punches Tony, leading to Tony calling the police and having Vic arrested. And that is where we left off. So, Kristen, take us back into the plot.
Yeah, so we also talked about the family watching TV and doing the Partridge Family sing-along. And so that all is about where we left off. So in the next day in the film, we see Troy try and fail to steal a bag of chips from the corner store while her Puerto Rican friend successfully steals an ice cream. And when she fails, her friend is trying to give her advice on how to get away with it next time. So that's just an interesting little moment of the neighborhood. And then also back with the family, with the adults, Woody and Carolyn are arguing about money, and Carolyn resents Woody for using their money carelessly to fund his solo career. So as the argument escalates, Carolyn yells for the children to turn off the TV because she hears them watching stuff upstairs while they're arguing. And when they don't listen, she goes to turn it off herself. And Clinton turns his back on her to try to turn back on the Knicks games. This is the one who loves the Knicks, the New York Knicks, whatever. He loves basketball. And so he is like, I want to watch that game. And he tries to turn it back on, and she grabs him for disobeying. And then Woody grabs her, and it's this whole scuffle. They carries her out of the room and down the stairs. And then one of the other kids jumps on his dad's back, and the other children are holding Carolyn back. And it's this big mess, big fight. And Carolyn hurts her ankle in the struggle. And so after the scuffle, she kicks Woody out of the house, and the 2 youngest kids hang with their mom in bed with ice on her ankle. And then Woody hugs the kids goodbye to go stay at his brother's. And so in the next part of the film, Troy hides Clinton's Knicks tickets because she's mad that he caused the fight between the parents, but he wrestles them back from her, but not before she reveals that she also spent his rare Buffalo nickels, even though she does lie about doing that to her mom later on in the film. So that happens. And then as the movie continues, it's a lot of like moments of growing up in the area, lots of petty grievances between the kids in the neighborhood. And while, this is all happening, eventually the parents do reconcile after Woody got kicked out. He does return home, and the family decides to go on a road trip. But as they're leaving, as they're heading for the car, a worker from Con Ed arrives to shut off their electricity due to an unpaid bill. And so the family has to postpone the trip and use candles to light the house. And then Vic, their upstairs neighbor, is obviously angry that the power's cut off because he pays them rent. He's like, where is all the money going? And that's
the ups and downs of life. Yeah, yep. Right? The ups and downs of life. And I think that that's what this is. It isn't anything groundbreaking as much as it's a slice of reality, and that everybody, goes through it. Families go through things. Mom and dads are classic tale of trying to keep ends together and be able to pay the bills. And there are things that men do and try to get away with, as fathers and whatnot, and sometimes it backfires. And it's just very relatable stuff, all of this. And I think also including the whole thing about in the beginning portion where you were talking about how Troy went with her friend, the Puerto Rican girl, to the store, and it's sort of like stealing is like a rite of passion in that area. Like getting away with stealing chips is something that you have to learn how to do successfully. So it's like a rite of passion. And one little thing that was a precursor to all this was that it's a very like, it's not a secret. It's just that it's a true thing that earlier when the black girls were making fun of the Puerto Rican girl, and vice versa, she was making fun in the back, and then they were calling her out over her hair, and then again that whole thing comes up again. So it's
just a little
it's very
dynamic within the neighborhood.
well, and it's also just very realistic. Like it's going to ring very true to someone who grew up in that era. You know, that even if you didn't grow up in that exact area, even if you didn't know, uh, you know, the family, who based, that Shui and Spike and Cinque, obviously based this story on their own life. Even if you didn't grow up with them, this is going to ring very true to a lot of people's experience from that period. And again, it's hard to tell what's based in reality or not because uh, what seems to ring true as probably did happen is sometime around this period, whether it was truly 1973 or maybe it was later, because we kind of talked about in part one how they're sliding the timeline around that Lee's real mother passed away in 1976, as opposed to what we'll see in the film. Spoilers, but
why wouldn't you just wait to bring that up until we're close to that plot point?
Because their father was a real musician who, as we talked about in part one, was very successful doing session work. And they hint that that's what this father had done previously and led to their lifestyle before, which part of the plot ongoing is the downgrading of their lifestyle and the embarrassment that comes with it, as the mother is trying to keep everything together while the father is not working at the level he once did. The mother mentions during that fight about money that can't you go back to, making money like you used to. And he goes, only if I play rock and roll, and I don't want to do that anymore. And she goes, well, maybe you have to for the family, and he's like, that doesn't leave me any time for my own music. And we know in real life, Bill Lee, the father of Spike and the rest of the kids, did have some very well received jazz albums he did solely, but we don't know if there was this financial hardship during that time period. And we don't know, again, if that was truly in 73 or if it was closer to 76, if that did happen. That's why I was bringing it up.
Yeah, and it is a classic case of the creative trying to make it work financially, and usually the longer time period you're talking about, the harder it is to sustain any kind of success or constant money flow. I think that's really real. And one other thing that was a precursor to all that, where you kind of could tell that, maybe he's a little set in the old ways. Mm-hmm. In the very beginning and throughout the film, there's other instances of this. Unlike, when I grew up, people would call out, like, hey, turn that rock and roll down, right? And then I got a little older, it was like, turn that hip hop off, right? Well, what was the father complaining about? He was complaining about, and I forget the character's name, the singer, the guy who likes to sing all the time. He was complaining that he was playing that crap too loud. That crap was the stylistics. Like, if the stylistics is too loud for you, what kind of music do you think is acceptable to play at a loud level? And that's already giving you a clue that, jazz is not in the scene like that anymore. And he might be stuck in an older way of thinking about art.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up, because for me, it was very clear that, like, he had a dream, but like the dream just wasn't fitting the lifestyle that they had at the moment. Like it became negligent at a point, where it's like his wife is working to the bone. She's trying to do everything, and he is continuing to let her down and falter and not even like pick up a second job to pull his weight. Yeah. Like, I understand, as a creative, to like, you have your dreams, but like at a point, you need to make money. You have 5 kids. You have 5 kids.
Yeah.
You need to help pull your weight as much, which explains, when you think about that moment where the mom is frustrated at the kids for not pulling their weight. To me, that felt like she was lashing out because it's like she doesn't feel like anyone is pulling their weight,
Right.
like even if her husband isn't. So I'm going to lash out at the kids instead. And you kind of see that where she is just like pulled taut, which is just not fair to her, because the mom ends up looking like the bad guy with discipline and stuff, and he gets to be the fun parent and just do the creative stuff. So that was my interpretation. That kind of irked me a little bit, where I was just like, I get that I'm supposed to like you, but I don't, because you're being a negligent dad.
Yeah, however, wait, in his defense, I'm sorry, real quick, Adam, the thing that I'm actually really proud of, that I'm happy about in this movie, and I like to think in real life, but at least in the movie, the way this is all portrayed, is that instead of sort of stereotypical fashion where like the father takes, all the stress out and starts to cheat on the wife or starts drinking or do drugs. No, man, he comes back and he's really trying to be a father and make it work, regardless of his faults, and he's got faults. He is a good man, and I think to me this also just kind of reinforces like the importance of a family that sticks together through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Rob, I think the character you were thinking of with the music was Tommy Lala.
Yes, Tommy Lala. Yeah.
And I think it also is just showing that the reliance of the family on the matriarch, because that's going to be a key point later on, and how she is kind of the glue holding everything together. And it was also interesting in reading about the making of the film. Alfre Woodard kind of did a lot of keeping an eye, taking care of the children off screen as well, the child actors. And she mentioned that she gave Zelda Harris, who played Troy, a little bit more room, to a little bit of a longer leash than she did the boys, in order to kind of give her that toughness that the character required. Let me look at what exactly she said. Where is that? Because I'd had it brought up yesterday and I didn't get to
While you're looking for that, I will say that Troy and the actress that plays Troy is, I'm forgetting her full name, Zelda Harris? Is that what
Zelda Harris.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, to me, she kind of steals the show. I'm just sort of enchanted by her acting and her honesty and her just being a young little girl going through all this. I really was really attached to her.
Yeah, no, she was very talented, and we'll talk about later on. What she does afterward. Here it is. I let Zelda be feistier than the other kids, Woodard said. I would kind of pull the reins of the boys quicker and tighter, but I didn't pull her reins because I don't believe in putting out the fire of a young girl. I don't believe in trying to get a girl to temper her fire. So I wanted her, especially around all those boys, to make sure she could fire back at them. And it was for Zelda, but it was also for me. And this is from a 2019 piece on refinery29.com that talked to Woodard and Harris and Zhui Li about the making of the movie, which was really interesting.
But, yeah, I love that. That's really cool that she did that.
Yeah.
And I think Zelda Harris, she's really good in this role for sure.
Absolutely. And so one other small thing that I found interesting, because part of the reason isn't just they focus so much on Clinton's love of the Knicks, isn't just because he's obviously based on Spike Lee and his love of the Knicks. It's because this is a very special season for the Knicks, as we'll talk about later on. And we'll talk about that a bit more in detail then.
Okay, so let's see. Now, they their power was cut off, but eventually they are able to make the travels like they had some plans to. And so they do travel south to stay with a few affluent relatives, basically just drop off some of their kids to some of those relatives. And so Troy stays for a longer period with her cousin Viola, who was adopted by Uncle Clem and Aunt Song. And Troy has a lot of fun hanging out there with Viola, but she does kind of dislike the aunt and their dog Queenie, and just it takes her a bit to warm up to the new environment, but it does give her a chance to explore her femininity a little bit, hang out with other girls her age. But I mean, she does get it in the neighborhood, but it's like a different type of vibe. And then
all. Remember where she was located at? Where they went to? Was it?
It was in Virginia, I believe.
Virginia, okay.
I knew it was south, but I didn't really know. But yeah, so yeah, while she's there on her 10th birthday, she gets a letter from her mother, and her mother updates her on what's been going on, and we get the title of the movie with the line, "Aren't you glad to be away from these crazy people in Crooklyn, New York?" Yeah. And so after she reads the letter and she is just dealing with more bickering between Viola and Aunt Song, she's like, you know what? I think I'm ready to go home. I've had my time here. I've had this different experience, but now I'm going to use the ticket Uncle Brown bought me and go home. But before going home, there is this crazy scene where the dog goes missing, Queenie goes missing, and then she is found smashed in the sofa bed. And which I'm just going to say right now, hang on, before you say, I just want to say that was stupid and unnecessary. All the animal cruelty in this movie is stupid, and I hate that it's not. And it's just like swinging a cat by their tail, throwing rocks at dogs.
Oh, that was a thing that people would do, though. Like
that's horrible. That's horrible.
It's one of those things I recognize as something that happened. Like even like that kind of thing wasn't uncommon. It was less common when I was growing up, but it was not uncommon that people would do that kind of thing. It was never something, it was something I was aware of, even if it wasn't my experience or something I would have ever wanted to do or participate in. It's the same thing. Like I was aware of dog fighting and cockfighting around me, but, did not approve of it myself, even if I knew what was going on. Well, and like with the scene with the dog, it's like the cousin is having Viola is having a sleepover because I don't know if it's like maybe her birthday too. I can't remember like what the reason for the sleepover is, because there's a bunch of other little girls in pajamas and they're getting ready for the night, and they're like, okay, we're going to pull out the bed, and the dog's been missing the whole time. And as they pull out the bed, the dog pops out. And everybody freaks out. And that's one of those, like, you ask, why did they include that? That reads to me as like they included it because that's something that actually happened.
You have to do a lot of reading between the lines on that one, because some of the things that happened before that was, you do find out that her cousin, who her cousin calls Aunt Song her mom, even though that's not really her mom. She was adopted. She's light skinned. Her adopted parents are darker, and she also is, you can tell because she's a preteen or a teen, that she's starting to see where she's different than her adopted parents, and has some animosity even towards who we refer to as Aunt Song, her mom. You see some of that, and I start to wonder, did they do that on purpose? I know that's super cruel, but sometimes I wonder if that was on purpose or was that an accident. I don't know. Well, what I do know is that Troy didn't even want to be there in the beginning, but she ended up being okay with her because her cousin was cool with her. She liked her cousin a lot.
Well, and there's a lot going on with the aunt and uncle and Viola, because like they're showing a, like we talked in part one about like the more, different classes. And so they're showing, the class side of it. And they're also showing, that these are African Americans who are much more into trying to assimilate into white culture. Correct.
Yeah.
But, and, I think there's also some colorism going on where it's maybe implied a bit that part of the reason they might have adopted Viola is because of her lighter skin. And you also get into like when Troy comes down there, she has beaded hair like her mother, and
Aunt Storm does not find that liking. She does
No.
not like that at all. Like, that
yeah,
needs to be,
and
that's so low class to her.
but it's not just low class. Like she's like, oh, isn't that quaint? Like I've never even seen this before, which to a certain audience is indicating she has no connection to her culture.
Right.
And I love that a white guy is speaking so authoritatively on this. I understand. Like I could be completely missing this. This is
This would
my
have been a good one to have a guest on, but well.
Well, I like to think of it's more of a I'm aware, but I'm choosing to be uppity.
right. And then but then like in her, because at one point we have a letter from Song to the mother, to Troy's mom, and she's saying, like, oh yeah, no, I ended up taking the beads out because I didn't know what to do with them or how to care for them. I hope you don't mind, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit of your stereotypical, Southern. Probably, I don't know. You can make some assumptions of what kind of religion. I don't want to go there and say that, but um, Anne Song is definitely a conservative. She's played by an actress named Frances Foster. Frances Foster is well known in theater, award-winning stage director and founding member of the New England Ensemble Company. She's actually in 1955 was the first African American to appear in a nationally broadcasted television commercial. Later on, she joined the troupe I mentioned from 1967 all the way through 1986 and appeared in over 25 of his productions. She won an Obie Award in '85 for sustained excellence performance. Um, but um, but she did appear in a few films, including Crooklyn. She was in Malcolm X. She was in Clockers. And she also had a recurring role of Vera on the soap opera Guiding Light as well. So there might be a little bit of recognition there, but it doesn't take long to know that she is, as a character, is a Southern, more conservative, and tolerates some of the things that her family from the Northeast comes from. But if you're going to come live in my house, some things are going to kind of change.
Yeah.
And there are just some universal things about we've all like I've definitely experienced people, whether it's friends or family, who are trying to either of a certain class, or trying to present themselves off as a certain class, where you had homes similar to what was being shown in the aunt and uncle and Viola living in, where everything is super tidy. It feels like you're gonna, like, you can't move, like you can't be comfortable or live in the furniture. Like it's
Yeah,
all made
no,
for
totally.
show and being pristine.
For
And
Troy, this was culture shock.
yeah. Well, and so one of the things to also talk about, like for this whole sequence, is I don't know if you guys noticed how the lens changed once they got to.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
it look. Yeah, I just thought that it was like a mess up or something. It was intentional.
Yeah, so they actually had to put signs out in the theaters to let people know that this wasn't a mess up. That they deliberately took an anamorphic lens, which was different than they used in everything else, to give it that squished feeling, to make everything feel tighter, like she's, because this is from Troy's perspective, so it feels like,
I don't
she's
fit.
imprisoned. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all like you want to get out of here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly noticed the shift, but I didn't realize that it was intentional like that. I just thought, okay, I'm watching a older movie from the library that something happened to the DVD or whatever.
No, that's a great point,
That's
Adam,
funny.
because I did find myself like wanting that to be over, and it fits with the whole idea of Troy wants to get out of here. And I thought what was cute too was that in the beginning, in the very beginning when they were dropping it off and they were starting to leave, you know, you know how you don't want to really admit your true emotions in front of like your extended family, but you want to let your mom know, and she keeps on saying, "Okay, bye, mom. I don't want to go, mom. Please take me with you." Like she's kind of like whispering how she really feels.
Yeah.
Please save me, please save me. But she does, and I thought that was cute.
Yeah, and I think this whole time is really interesting because, like, beyond the different way that it was done with the lens, I think it also just really shows that, like, she thrives in the chaos. It's the chaos is what she's used to. It's home to her. So it's like, yes, this might be a nice and clean area and there's a lot less going on, but that isn't what she knows and loves. What she loves is Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, and I think, speaking to, the universal themes and elements of the movie, that, that feeling, I think a lot of us have had that feeling where we have to go visit a relative for an extended period of time or go to a summer camp or just some situation where you don't feel that comfort, that you just feel out of place, and that everything is off. And like it's that kind of bizarro world feeling, which the lens gives the audience. And you're just waiting for it to be over so you can go back to normal, which you get, once they leave that sequence, and even like when Troy is reading the letter, they're intercutting between Troy's scene, stuff with, the lens and then stuff that's shot the way the rest of the movie is back home, to reinforce that. So that was a really cool creative choice, and I don't know if I would have caught how deliberate it was or if I would have been confused, but I'd read about that before watching the movie, so I was aware it was coming
The
up.
other time, this second, or it's not the second time I see this movie, but this most recent time of seeing the movie again too, I also kind of picked up on how Troy was and her cousin were feeling each other out to see if they even like each other. If this was right, like, are you cool or are you not? And they kind of slowly gave a signal. Said, "I know I'm cool. Are you cool?" And
well, and sorry, one final thing as we wrap up this section, as we talked about, one of the things with Troy, because she's 9, she turns 10 while she's there with the family, but they in the we talked about in part 1, she's self-conscious, she's wondering about her body and its development or lack of development thus far, even though it would be fairly early, somewhat on the precocious side for her to have entered puberty. But already her Viola, like they have all thing about I think Viola's already starting to use training bras or something like that, and so that comparison makes Troy a little self-conscious, and they're also talking about like the beads and stuff, like one of the first things Aunt Song asks Troy is, do you have your night clothes? And Troy shows them to her aunt, and her aunt's like, oh, those will never do. You can borrow one of Viola's old ones. I'm going to throw these out.
Yeah, just straight throw them out, like not even hold them, like just throw them out, and I'm going to replace them with something, very feminine and frilly and
what fits what I want you to be.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that was an interesting time for her, and then she gets to come back home to the very sad, difficult part of this part of the film. So she returns to New York, and her Aunt Maxine and Uncle Brown are there to pick her up at the airport, and they take her to the hospital because she
not going straight home. She's going to the hospital.
Yeah, they're taking her straight to the hospital, and that's when she learns that her mother is there, and later that evening, Woody delivers the news to all the kids that their mother has cancer and that she must stay in the hospital while they treat her. And it's this very, very melancholic scene where all the boys are crying and Troy is just very stoic, just kind of taking in the news, not really showing much emotion. But it's after that she kind of starts filling her mother's role, and Carolyn continues to be treated in the hospital during this time, but eventually she does pass away. And so that obviously rocks the entire family. And there's this part where one of Troy's brothers is wondering if they have to dress up for the funeral, and there's like a whole bit about where it's like the aunt is like, oh, try on these new clothes for the funeral. It will make your mother proud. And Troy is like, no, my mom has a strong dislike of polyester. She would never let me wear that. And she's just continuously, being insolent to everything, not wanting to do what everybody around her wants. But her father does talk her into attending the funeral, even though she initially tells him that she doesn't want to go. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting moment because you kind of see how the women in the family bear the burden of everyone around them and have to be the strong ones. Like, she sees how her mother was all of her life, and she's like, okay, I have to be that for these people now. Like, I have to bear the burden. Her brothers are crying, and she knows she has to be the strong one, take on this role. And it's like in that moment, she's forced to grow up. Even at 10 years old, it just feels like this is her duty. And it's really heartbreaking to see because it's like a 10-year-old should not have to have that kind of pressure put on her shoulders,
No, absolutely. And, even if we talk about, because again, this part is very much based on real life for the Lees, that the Lees' mother passed away in 1976. Jui would have been about 14 when that happened. Spike, we talked about, would have actually been in college, but even then, it's still a tremendous burden on the family, and everybody. And 14 or 10, it is not a time to be forced into that grown-up adult role of having to play caretaker to everybody else.
I almost lost my mom to cancer, and so I related to that. But having to deal with this at that age, let alone actually losing your mom, I just can't even imagine. So it was definitely touching to watch that.
It's so tough, and I that's part of why, my mom passed away a number of years ago now, but, I was in my mid 30s, when that happened. And I knew people who had lost their mother much earlier, and so I was always, that helped me be, sad that she was gone, but grateful for the time I got because I knew it was much more than some other people got. Um, and one of the things uh, to talk about is Aunt Maxine and Uncle Brown. Aunt Maxine is actually played by screenwriter and sister of Spike, Zhui Li. And then Uncle Brown was played by tremendous character actor and director Vondi Curtis Hall, who's been in a bunch of things. And one thing I think it maybe happened in like the letter, the previous section, like maybe around the letter from Troy's mom, because there was a bit of a subplot about the father, Woody, putting on a concert. And that's actually where the Knicks tickets were for. That Clinton, that there was, the Knicks are in the championship at this time. For the NBA championship, and which is real. Like in 1973, they really were playing for a championship, and he had tickets for the game, but it was at the same time his father was going to put on this important concert, and his mother was like, "You really should go to the concert and support your father." But he goes to the game anyway, and she sees him later that night, and seems a little, even though the Knicks won the championship at that game. That he seemed a little disappointed, maybe in himself, that he didn't go and support his father. But the Knicks really did win that championship. In the movie, they keep referring to it as their first championship. It's actually their second. It's their second of two they've won so far. They'd won previously in 1970. So I thought that was weird that they kept saying that with so many people involved in the production who would know better. But
yeah, there's also another point too, is that, remember that the father had always kind of talked about how, hey, I've got this upcoming concert and this is going to bring us some good money and it's going to open up some more doors.
Yeah.
And now that you actually see the concert happen, and outside of the family members, you probably see 6 other people, and then a whole lot of empty seats, and it's just another sobering moment of like, times have changed, dude, and that plan is not working.
But that he's following a fantasy that, it's always going to be better tomorrow. That, it's great that he's an optimist and believes in himself and his dreams, but at a certain, it's back to, that she is being forced to be the bad guy by being the realist and facing reality. And when is he going to wake up and face reality that, this isn't working and we need to put food on the table for these kids. And so, and then, like I said, they had the whole thing with, Clinton being sad, and some of that, even that whole subplot, gets back into something we were talking about in part 1 a bit, about how, the focus, this originally started as a script from Zhui Li, based on her memories, her personal memories growing up, and combining that into an amalgamation of reality and fiction to create, a coming of age story for the character of Troy. And then once Spike and Cinque got involved, it kind of, while the focus is still mostly on Troy, it's not on Troy as much. And so there are times some of these detours feel like you're losing the focus on the main plot, like where it should be focusing on.
But you know what's interesting about that? I'm okay with it. Like, I don't feel like it's weird. I'm kind of interested in like learning about, like, I could watch an episode just on Tony, right? I could see, if it was a series.
But yeah, no, like if you were doing this as a series, like there are plenty of interesting characters to explore, but, it was also like what we talked about where, like this could at times feel a little messy. Maybe some egos got involved because we talked about like which of the brothers is actually developed. It's the one that's clearly based on Spike. All the other brothers, you couldn't say anything about them, other than they exist.
Their dancing was hilarious. That was awesome.
Well, when they were all dancing. There's the one that throws up at dinner.
There's the one that throws trash that gets the whole altercation to start.
Yeah,
I think that one might be Wendell.
Yeah, and then there's the youngest one, which I think is different than the one that threw up at dinner.
We're actually just about to learn something about him.
Yeah.
So if we want, we can get into it because we're talking of who you're referring to is actually Joseph. And Joseph, he comes inside crying at the, like, after the funeral, they're all at the house. And Joseph comes inside crying because Snuffy and Right-Hand Man robbed him. And so, Troy is a little pissed about this, a little upset. And so she follows her mother's wishes for her, which, something we didn't mention was on her deathbed or close to it. At one point, her mother did ask her to take care of like the youngest brother, Joseph, to be there for him. And so Troy is like, all right, I'm going to do what my mom said. I'm going to take my baseball bat outside and I'm going to hit the crap out of Snuffy and tell him to go sniff glue on his own block. And she does. She takes care of him. And that just kind of leads into a lot of her of the whole family really just trying to move on, trying to move forward. And but before that, there is this moment where Troy is dreaming that she's hearing her mother's voice one morning. And she goes downstairs and sees her father trying to kill a rat in the kitchen. And he says that it's all right to cry and that even her oldest brother, Clinton, has cried. And
wait, real quick. Okay. When she comes down, she thinks that all the commotion is going on. She starts saying stuff, Mom, like she's addressing her mom as if it was any other Saturday morning waking up to chaos. Like she's been through this before.
Yeah. Well, and she's imagining the voices, like it's almost like replaying the argument from earlier where that led to the father getting kicked out of the house. So she's hearing her mother's voice and her father's voice, thinking that in another like argument like that.
But then going to the kitchen, it's just the father, and so the father's like, like, baby, what are you talking about? Mom's not here. It's okay. Like, and then it's like, that's when he's like, it's fine to cry. Like, it's okay. Like, everybody has cried already. And so this is the moment where she does finally break down. And the song Ain't No Sunshine is playing as this is happening, which I think is very fitting to the scene. And the dad is holding her while she's breaking down finally. And she concludes in this moment, Troy does, that it's good that her mother's suffering has ended. And so it's kind of like her making peace with it, finally crying, finally letting herself sit in the grief for a moment. And so that moment happens, and then we get the closing scene of the Carmichael family and their friends resuming their lives. Troy assumes the matriarch role left by her mother. She's doing her brother's hair, and Carolyn's spirit visits Troy in this like end sequence part, praising her for taking on so many responsibilities. And then the last scene is of the neighborhood being watched by Troy as she's looking out the window, much like Carolyn used to do near the beginning of the film. And so it's kind of like a full circle moment of like her moving on and trying to take parts of her mother with her. And the credits roll over an episode of Soul Train, and the song Crooklyn by the Crooklyn Dodgers plays. So that is how the film wraps itself up.
No, the Crooklyn. Well, never mind. That's a great song. The Crooklyn Dodgers was really just a group that existed for one song. A bunch of rappers that got together. It's a great classic song.
Yeah, sorry. No, it's one of those super.
This version, at least. This version, at least, was by them. That was played. That was used.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but well, it's similar to like for the Faculty, they had the Class of '99 do a cover of Another Brick in the Wall, and that was Lane Staley and a bunch of other people, that were really just together for that one song. But and I know you'd mentioned Snuffy and Right Hand, and we'd mentioned them in part one, but again, just like recapping in case someone didn't listen to that part. They're these glue sniffers with Snuffy, played by Spike Lee, who are robbing the kids. You see them at the start of the movie, and so you then see them get their comeuppance, and again talking about like full circle moments, calling back to the start of the movie where Troy was afraid of them. At the start, she now shows no fear because she, as you talked about, the need to stand up to fulfill her mother's wishes. So.
It's funny, on a whole other level, though, you got me thinking about how the symbolism involved, too, was bigger than just the family, and that, this might be a bit of a nod and of symbolism to just a strong Black woman having to take, Adam, earlier you were saying that take the brunt, or maybe it was Kristen, taking the brunt of the family.
Kristen said that,
you're kind of seeing how this happens and how it happens first mentally and then physically, the passing of the baton or whatever.
Well, you even like just from the start of the sequence with when you see Troy, because at one point they show Troy in, the mother had a like barber's chair in the house that was kind of like her chair, but like she would sit in it and have the kids between their legs and be doing their hair.
Yes.
And you saw that earlier in the film. And there was even at one point, she chastised Woody or someone else for like, no, that's my chair, stay out of it or something. And so then later on with Joseph, you see Troy in the chair, doing Joseph's hair, again, another symbolic calling that she has stepped into her mother's place. So
it was touching.
Yeah. No, just overall, I really enjoyed the movie. One thing we didn't really talk much about is the production design along with the cinematography. It is just full of bright, vibrant colors that jump off the screen and is, if nothing else, just a pleasure to watch as well.
Yeah,
And,
I would say overall, like this isn't necessarily the type of movie I would have sought out for myself, but it was interesting to watch. It's like a time capsule of a time I'll never know or quite understand as an outsider, but that made it all the more interesting. Very slice of life, trying to make it in Brooklyn, subtle moments of commentary. But I actually expected more of like a message, or I guess like more of it. I feel like because it's like it ended, and I wanted more of like a packed punch, not instead of just like, well, that's just how it's got to be. She's got to take on the role now. Like it's kind of sad for me personally. So like I liked it for what it was, but like the way that like the women are just expected to be these healing centers for all the men around them just really made me sad and didn't make me feel good. It just made me sad for her and her situation. And like for her to just be able to exist like the other boys, to have the joy of the Knicks tickets, to be able to do those things and not have to worry about taking care of the family. I wanted that for Troy. And so that is kind of how I felt leaving the film, just kind of wishing that she had a better situation in that regard.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I really enjoyed it. And, I think this gets back into, again, something we were talking about in part one a bit, that, at the start of part one, when we were just talking about, what our familiarity with Spike Lee is, that, Spike Lee is known for his message movies, like that's the stereotypical Spike Lee movie. But there are so many of his movies where that's just not the case. He's just making a movie, telling a story. There may be themes and other messages in it, but it's not really a message movie the same way like Malcolm X or Do the Right Thing, or even to an extent She's Gotta Have It or School Days are. And you start to see that more and more as his career progresses, that he has more of those thrown in from this point on. But to your point, Kristen, that it's also just interesting to see a glimpse into a life that you're not familiar with. I think that's part of what for me also makes some of Spike's other movies interesting, especially like School Days, where it's capturing a culture I can understand and giving me a better insight into it, even if I never am going to be able to experience that myself.
Yeah, there's a part of this that feels almost like a the way you like a personal movie, as opposed to like to just want your own home videos, and you don't want to. Of course, don't expect mass audiences to love it. So I understand it, and I don't. It's not that I love this movie. This is not like one of the greatest movies, but I personally just have a lot of attachment to it for a couple of reasons. And one is just because of the connections to my childhood. But the other thing is that I think that, at least from the years that I grew up and maybe it's different now. Well, it's different now, but I don't know if the true message is getting across. But to share to the world family life from other cultures was something that wasn't happening enough, even in the 90s then. This was new, to show these emotions that like you knew what was going on, but I don't think like the rest of the world quite understood, or can you at least sympathize with what real life is like for other people? Like,
well, it's a very empathetic movie, and I think especially today in the world as it is, we could all do with more empathy. So, I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed my journey through Spike's filmography that I was able to take, and look forward to taking more of a journey through that as I can, because he is just so talented at what he does. But
right on.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Any final thoughts as we're kind of wrapping up here?
I think we covered it.
Awesome. All right. That was the movie and our thoughts, but what did the world of 1994 think of it? Well, it debuted at the box office on May 13th of 1994 and came in third with over $4.2 million at the domestic box office, behind The Crow, which debuted at number one, and When a Man Loves a Woman, which, while technically in its second weekend, had only been in 19 theaters in its initial week, so it was the first in wide release. Over the subsequent weeks, the numbers would drop, and the movie was out of theaters after the first weekend in June. Ultimately, it took in just over $13.6 million in domestic box office against its $14 million budget, not including marketing. Now, just on that, and taking into account the theaters take a cut of that $13.6 million, it would be a money loser. But as often happens, we only have domestic numbers and nothing for international, which isn't going to be just zero. We also don't have home video rental numbers and what cable and TV rights sold for. So even with the disappointing box office, it's close enough. It still might have recouped for the studio when taking those in other numbers into account. So it underwhelmed at the box office, but how did critics and audiences that saw it feel about it? Well, it was generally well received by critics, earning 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, with Roger Ebert giving the film 3.5 stars, while other critics, like the legendary Janet Maslin of the New York Times, gave more muted praise combined with critiques of the plot and pacing, feeling it was messy, along with the positives, and this opinion was shared by other critics. Cinema Score, which has been tracking audiences' feelings after viewing since 1978, has the audience score for the movie at a B. In the years since its release, it has become a bit of a cult classic, even ranking number 47 on the Letterboxd Top 100 Black-Directed Films list. As we talked about, The Crow also starred David Patrick Kelly. So, we kind of mentioned that in part one, in case I forgot when recording this, but he was competing against himself that weekend with two movies opening at the same time. And When a Man Loves a Woman is a wonderful story about Andy Garcia and Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan is an alcoholic housewife, and their struggles through that. I had to watch that in religion class one time at school, and I actually got out of watching it because they got to the scene of the mom hiding vodka around the house, and I went, I lived through this with my mother. Can I leave?
Oh, wow! You're saying this timeline. I lived through it, and I still can't picture all that in the same week.
I know,
but it makes sense. It's just like I'm having a hard time putting When a Man Loves a Woman and The Crow and Crooklyn all together. Like that. What?
You know what the big Memorial Day weekend movie was for that year?
No, what was it?
The Flintstones with John Goodman and Rick Moranis and Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth Perkins and Halle Berry and Kyle MacLachlan.
Okay.
Are we going to list the entire cast today, or?
I think I was tuning
Elizabeth
out.
Taylor was also in it. That's about all I can remember who was in it.
If you say so.
Yeah, no, that and like that held records for Memorial Day box office until like a few years later. So
insane.
Yeah, but it's good to see, and it's just one of those, like, I don't, I understand why this wasn't a hit at the box office, especially in that time and place. Like,
what category of film is this to you?
Dramedy.
I was thinking drama. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a drama with a lot
family
of
drama.
Humor. Family drama, family dramedy. That it's got enough humor in there to balance out the drama. That it's not completely maudlin. But I also think people. I think people in 1994 would have been thrown by the bright colors. So they might have gone in expecting something else. And just Spike Lee's reputation in general at this time was not for a movie like this. And so that probably also drew audiences a bit. And, I can definitely not see mainstream America thinking like, okay, this is the movie we got to go see.
No, it's not. Right.
I like I said, I had remembered hearing about it, but I was more interested. I wanted to go see The Crow that weekend. I know.
Which which had its own momentum for a whole other reason, right?
Oh yeah, and we're probably there's a good chance we're going to talk about that movie later this year.
Very good. Well,
yeah.
guys, thanks for covering this one.
Yeah, whoa, hold on. We got a little bit more. Spike Lee has continued his legendary career since Crooklyn. To put it in perspective, this was his 7th full feature. In August of 2025, just a few months away, he is scheduled to release his 24th full feature, highest to lowest, starring Denzel Washington in a remake of the Akira Kurosawa 1963 crime classic, High and Low. We are not going to name all the other 16 features, let alone documentaries and other projects he's been involved with since, but a few include Inside Man in 2006, starring Denzel Washington and Clive Owen and Jodie Foster, Black Klansman in 2018, starring John David Washington, who is the son of Denzel Washington, Adam Driver, and Topher Grace, which earned Spike his first Academy Award nominations for Best Director and Best Picture, and his first competitive Oscar win for Best Adapted Screenplay. And The Five Bloods in 2020, starring Delroy Lindo, who was we saw in Crooklyn, Clark Peters, and Chadwick Boseman in his last film to be released while he was still alive. Spike also won an honorary Academy Award in 2015. Zhui Li has continued to act, appearing in a number of projects over the years outside of those with her brother. In 2001, she wrote and directed a short called Snapped, according to IMDb. She also wrote the short Jesus Children in America, which was directed by Spike for the 2005 anthology film All the Invisible Children. She was also a writer and story editor on the TV series adaptation of She's Gotta Have It for Netflix. Zelda Harris, who played Troy, would appear in movies like The Babysitter's Club in 1995 and Spike Lee's He's Got Game in 1998. She would also make appearances in shows like Law and Order and Second Noah until 2002 when she appeared on NYPD Blue. After that, she left acting to attend Princeton, where she graduated in 2007. She has a few more acting credits around 2012 and 2014, but seems to be happy working as a teacher today.
And the Knicks are in the playoffs again.
Yes, and doing very well. Well, and when the movie came out, so that was actually the Knicks were in the finals that summer.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
Yeah, no, that was the summer they were against the Houston Rockets. And in the middle of one of the finals games is the O.J. Simpson chase.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. This is how this is how the universe flopped.
And with Zelda Harris, Second Noah, she was actually a main character on that. That was some sitcom on ABC about a family who adopts a bunch of kids that ran for like 2 seasons. She was one of the kids adopted. Another one was played by James Marsden, who people know from the X-Men movies and the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. And Joey Lauren Adams was also on the show playing a character. And it's like I'd never heard of this show. It's like, what the hell is this?
I didn't mean it by.
Yeah, no, it's always funny like to run into shows, especially in this time period, like when network TV meant something, and find a show is like, not only have I never heard of it, but like, it's not just like a pilot or ran like a few episodes. This ran for 2 seasons. It's like, what? So any closing thoughts on the, aftermath, the movie itself? Anything you want to say as we close things out?
No, I think that thanks that we covered the movie, it was one of my picks, and I know it was different. I wanted to pick something kind of really different than what we had covered so far. I don't think we had done too many family. Yeah, you can make the argument we had. My bad.
Yeah,
but
it's fine. No, I really appreciated you chose this one because it's not one I would have sought out on my own. And, it also meant diving into Spike Lee and learning more about him on a personal level and, watching more of his films. So, I definitely Appreciated that and appreciated the movie. So thanks for bringing it to us. And that was what 1994 and the present thought of the film. And you've already heard what we think, but we want to know what you think. Tell us all the things we got right, all the things we got totally wrong, and everything in between. You can do that in the comments if the platform you listen to us allows comments. If not, you can do media. We are at Savage Movie Night on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us there to stay up to date on the latest with the show and drop in the comments to share your thoughts. Now that we've taken our brothers, Buffalo Nichols, grieved the sudden passing of our mother, and grown to become the family matriarch, we must look at what's next. And next, we must get brutally murdered by the dad from that 70s show, get brought back so we can protect and serve, and ultimately save dystopian Detroit from getting even worse, because we are talking all about one of my all-time favorite movies, the 1987 Paul Verhoeven classic, RoboCop. RoboCop is available to stream on Max. It is also available to rent or buy on Amazon, Apple, Fandango at Home, and most other major platforms. You can also find it on good old-fashioned DVD, Blu-ray, VHS, Betamax, or even Laserdisc, probably, if you're into physical media. But however you find it, watch it and come right back here next month to listen to us talk all about it. Thanks so much to our editor, Javi, and the entire Savage Content team. Thanks so much to my co-hosts, Rob and Kristen, and thanks so much to our sponsor, Savage Content. And most importantly, thanks so much to all of you for listening. Please give us 5 stars and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, a follow, ring the bell, drop in the comments, all the good YouTube things. I've been your host, Adam, and we'll see you next time on the Savage Movie Night Podcast.